Hello. Well, I'm not actually in South Wales at the moment. I'm actually in London. I've been up here for a conference this afternoon, and I've got a full day of it tomorrow before travelling back to Cardiff. And I thought, while I'm up here, let's see if I can make a video. Now, somebody once said to me, Bob, once you've seen the main sites, there's not a lot to see in London, really, is there? Yeah, there is. There's all sorts of little things if you know where to look and if you look. And so I set myself the task. Could I see 10 things within 10 minutes walk of the hotel that I'm staying in here in Shoreditch? Now, these are 10 things that I found interesting. You might not find interesting, but I thought they were quite fascinating. And some of them I knew absolutely nothing about. And then I found an awful lot more, but we'll stick with the 10. So, let's go. Number 1. In 1979, a man called Dennis Service came to Spitalfields and bought a derelict house. He reconfigured it to tell the story of an imaginary Huguenot family who'd lived there since it was built in 1724. It can be best described as a still life drama created by Service as a historical imagination of what life would have been like inside for a family of Huguenot silk weavers. It is a Grade 2 listed Georgian terraced house. It was never meant to be an accurate historical creation of a specific moment. It was an evocation of a world. It was essentially a theatre set. It is, however, a time capsule of life in the 1700s and well worth a visit. There's been a market on this site for 350 years, but in 1991 it gave its name to a new market over in Leighton, where fruit and vegetables are now traded. In 2005, a regeneration programme resulted in a whole load of new public squares, and there are regular markets and there are shops that are actually here permanently. And it's just a really nice space to come and find some street food and come and find some antiques and some bargains and goodness knows what else. There are a lot of elephants around here, but that's not what we've come to see. What we've come to see is this. Now, in 1989, they were developing all around here, all these offices. And it's very difficult to see through this, but this is the remains of an old charnel house, thought to be the oldest building in Spitalfields. And rather than knock it down, they've incorporated it into the development. So if I wander down here, you can see, here we are. The Spitalfields Charnel House. And you can see through the some bronze figures there. I'm not quite sure what Charnel House is. I think it's some sort of hospital. You can see they've done an awful lot of work in there to preserve it. And here we go. St Mary's, Spital Chapel and Charnel House. In the late 1840s, there were a number of Jewish migrants came over, mainly from the Netherlands, and they settled in the area fleeing persecution. They set up trades, diamond cutting, cigar making, slipper and cap making, and they looked around for a place to worship. In 1867, they purchased the lease on a chapel here in Sandy Row, which was first opened as a chapel in 1766. Today, it's the oldest surviving Ashkenazi synagogue in London. There's a fine line between graffiti and street art, and this area of London has a lot of both. However, when done right, street art can be very impressive. This is Middlesex Street. In 2010, a street artist called Ben persuaded the traders to have letters painted onto their shutters. Time has meant changes to the original installation have taken place, and unless the shutters are down you can't see very much. But he's also incorporated this wall, which showed all 26 letters. It's nice to actually sit down for a couple of minutes, take the weight off my feet. This is St. Botolph. St. Botolph. I'm not quite sure how it's actually pronounced. But there's been a place of worship here since Roman times. And St. Botolph was the patron saint of travellers, and they built this building in 1729. And the idea of it was, if you're going on a journey, you came here, you prayed to St. Botolph for a safe journey, and then when you returned, you came back and gave thanks to him to say thank you very much for the safe journey. Now, the other reason I included this is because it has the title Without, St. Botolph Without Bishopsgate. And the question was, well, what does without mean when it's in a church name? I had no idea. I looked it up on Google and I couldn't find anything. I just couldn't get a reply back. So I emailed the church, and thank you very much, Mari, for the response. But it means outside. You see, Bishopsgate was literally that. There were the city walls, there was a gate called Bishopsgate, and this church was outside Bishopsgate, so hence it meant without. So wherever you see a church anywhere that's got without in the title, it means it was outside of either a gate or some walls. There's lots of lovely churches around like this where you can actually just sit down and take the weight off your feet for a little bit. There's a fountain in the gardens over there. It's just a little bit of a haven, despite the fact it is just so noisy around here. If I was to ask you, what is the smallest city in England? And I'm saying England, not Great Britain or United Kingdom, England. You'd probably say Wales. And you'd have good reason to, because it is very small. But it's not the smallest. The smallest is the City of London. Now, I'm not talking about the big metropolitan bit. I'm talking about the square mile of London, which has 8,000 inhabitants. Because a lot of people work here, a lot of people visit here. There's only a few thousand people live here. So it is the smallest city in England. And how do you know when you're in the City of London or not elsewhere? Because you will come across one of these chappies. These are City of London markers. They're all around the edge of the square mile. They are a dragon with a shield, and I'm sure if I knew my terminology, it'd be a rampant or something. I haven't got a clue. But there we go. City of London markers. You see them quite regularly, and you've now got a trivia question for your Christmas quiz. Once upon a time, just down the road next to Liverpool Street Station, there was another railway station called Broad Street. It served North London, actually was the terminus for the North London line. But it was a bit superfluous when in 1986 it closed. And the line actually linked up with the Overground and what was then the Underground on the East London line. It formed a completely new line. Broad Street itself was completely demolished, became Bishopsgate. And there's very little of a line left, but they did keep this viaduct. Now, the reason they kept it is because underneath there are basically offices, shops, premises, a venue and whatever. So someone thought, well, if we've got a viaduct and we've got some space, let's make use of it. Welcome to the Shoreditch Underground trains. There's two of them up there, there's another two down there. They're ex-Jubilee Line trains that were bought for £100, and they're offices, they're serviced offices and hot desks. You can't go up and see them, sadly, but they do hold open days now and again. During the 40s and 50s, two entertainers became household names. Bud Flanagan and Chesney Allen. They're part of a wider group known as the Crazy Gang, had various hit songs including Underneath the Arches and the one you may have heard of, Run Rabbit Run. They were very successful and had top shows at top theatres including the London Palladium. Allen retired in the 50s on health grounds, but Bud Flanagan went solo, performing on radio and TV. And his last recording was made for a new sitcom that was launching in 1968. The show was called Dad's Army. And the song? Who do you think you're kidding, Mr. Hitler? Bud died in October 68 and is still fondly remembered as a great of the music hall and variety genre. Sir Thomas Fowell Buxton, who, I hear you say? Not a household name, but his achievements you will know about. He was born in 1786, educated in Trinity College, Dublin, and worked at the Truman Brewery here in Spitalfields. He became a partner and then owner before moving into politics. It was there he started to campaign against slavery. Whilst the trade had been abolished, slavery continued, and he took over as leader of the abolitionist movement after William Wilberforce retired. He achieved his goal when slavery was mainly abolished in 1833. He headed for Africa to become a missionary in 1841, but due to high death rates in the expedition, this was cut short, and he returned to England, passing away in 1845 in Norfolk. This blue plaque was erected in 2007 by English Heritage at the Old Truman Brewery. So what have we learnt from this little trip around Shoreditch and Spitalfields area of London? Well, first of all, there's a lot to see. There's all sorts of things. Every time I looked up at the wall, oh, there's another blue plaque. Oh, look, there's another sort of interesting pub or another interesting shop, or, oh, what's that? You know, at one point I went past somewhere and there was broccoli stuck on the wall. Apparently it's called Broccoli Street. Who knew? But there's an artist in residence that does this and sticks broccoli up there. At one point I went past an Invader mosaic. Now that may not mean a lot to you, but Invader's one of the top street artists in this world, and he has a website where he sort of shows all of his stuff, and what he does is he makes mosaic out of bits of Rubik's Cube. When I was over by the underground trains, there was a blue plaque commemorating that was where Crunchy stood, and Crunchy was a statue commemorating the credit crunch. 2010, they moved it on. No more Crunchy, fantastic. Walk into the Truman Brewery yard, where I saw the blue plaque earlier, and there sitting on the side is Crunchy. It's just, there is so much to see. There's churches and all this sort of thing, and I will just deal with the vegetable shaped elephant in the room, which is, why didn't you include the gherkin, Bob? It's very simple. It's 13 minutes walk from here, and I did say it's everything in 10. I will be back in South Wales doing canals and railways and goodness knows what else I can find very soon. But in the meantime, I hope you enjoyed this quick sojourn around London. I've certainly really enjoyed wandering around. And so until next time.